Philadelphia has been the home of many champions, but none of them possessed the mystique of the 1960 Eagles.
This 1960 team developed that intangible, whatever it is. Some people called it spirit, some people called it camaraderie. It was just a strange, unique group of guys that suddenly decided that the most important thing in the world to them was to win a championship.
The Philadelphia game, 1960. Is that a game that got away from you?
Got away from Vince.
Yeah.
See, we were, you know, we were all young.
This is really your first, this is the first championship game?
First championship game. Here we are in Philadelphia. We're playing a championship game after only 2 years. Hell, we have a group of people, I guess I'm the oldest on the team, going in to play for the World Championship. And he came there in 59, and here we are 60, we're playing for the championship. And I guess it was disbelief, somewhat. We were trying to pinch ourselves to realize, yes, we were there. And maybe we were more thinking about where we were instead of what we were playing for. But we learned after that game, because after the game, he says, we will never lose another one. And you had to know that he meant it.
Yeah. It was an exceedingly close game.
Oh yeah, it was 10-7 or 13-6.
17-13, yeah.
17-13, something like that. Yeah. I remember, because I see Chuck Benerick, who played on that team at the time. He only lived a couple of miles from me, so I was going to have to live with him. It's part of life.
Well, you can show a few more rings than he can.
Well, yes, but I'll tell you, Chuck was a hell of one. Because, you know, he's in the Hall of Fame too. He was playing in a, you know, at that time I didn't think about it, but he was 36, I was 26. I mean, that's a lot of years.
So Van Brocklin was the...
Dutch, yeah.
Yeah,
he was a great quarterback, though. I mean, we talk about all the quarterbacks in National Football League. And Dutch was unusual because he would do what the hell he wanted to do, and he didn't care what anybody else cared. He did what his abilities allowed him to do.
You know, it's interesting, in a time period, Bobby Lane would have probably fit that same category.
All the quarterbacks, Wyatt Tittle.
Yeah.
You know, Wyatt Tittle is of the same mold. Bobby Lane, you know, they're all those rebel-type quarterbacks that's going to go out and look at you and beat you.
Yeah.
You know, knew they could beat you if they just get a few of the hits.
In the world to the championship.
Coached by Buck Shaw, the Eagles were led by quarterback Norm Van Brocklin, number 11. It was the Dutchman's imagination and kick-in-the-butt tirades that turned this group of losers into winners.
As cutting as he could be, he was a lot like all of our fathers probably should have been. Even some of the linemen that wanted to punch his lights out because of what he would say in the offensive huddle. By the end of the evening, after the game was over, they'd say, hey, Dutch, great job.
Van Brocklin's got it. Van Brocklin's going to throw. He throws into the corner. Oh, touchdown!
One time, they were going to send me out, and Dutch stepped back and said to Shaw, get him out of here. Well, my feelings were hurt at the time, but we did win the game.
There were 39 of us, and we really had no what you'd call really a big star except Norm Van Brocklin. Without old number 11, I don't know what Tommy McDonald could have ever have been.
With Van Brocklin, the Eagles won 10 games and lost only 2. Victory never came easily. And it was even harder to win respect.
Each day when the game would be over, we'd meet the opponents in the middle of the field, and they'd say, "We wish the hell we could play you again." And we'd say, "Well, we'd like to, but we're too busy. We're on our way to the championship."
This trip produced many jarring collisions, but none matched the hit that 35-year-old Chuck Bednarik put on the Giants' Frank Gifford. The impact preserved an important victory and propelled the Eagles into the NFL championship.
What one game would stand out the 14 years that I played? I say December 26, 1960, the Green Bay Packer game. That one game of all the 280 games that I played will stick out in my mind forever.
Protecting a 17-13 lead, Chuck Bednarik's tackle on the game's final play became one of the greatest moments in the history of Philadelphia sports.
67,000 people standing. What an electrifying finish to a great season and a great game. Stars up over the ball. This'll be it. Stars back to throw. He takes time. He throws over the middle. It's caught at the 15. Running hard to the 7-yard line and down on the 7.
I could see the clock going 11 and 10, and he's squirming and kind of, we're stalling for time. It was 2 and 1, and I looked down at him and told him, "You can get up now, you blankety blank. This game is over."
The game's over. The game's over. The Eagles are the champions of the world. Listen.
The 13 lead. Chuck Bednarik's tackle on the game's final play became one of the greatest moments in the history of Philadelphia sports.
67,000 people standing. What an electrifying finish to a great season and a great game. Stars up over the ball. This'll be it. Stars back to throw. He takes time. He throws over the middle. It's caught at the 15. Running hard to the 7-yard line and down on the 7.
I could see the clock going 11 and 10, and he's squirming and kind of, we're stalling for time. It was 2 and 1, and I looked down at him and told him, "You can get up now, you blankety blank. This game is over."
The game's over. The game's over. The Eagles are the champions of the world. Listen.
You remember the game, Jim?
Very well. You were there.
Well, tell us a little bit about it. I mean, it's probably the perfect segue as the starting offensive tackle for the 1960 world champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, we were never supposed to be there. It was either supposed to be the Giants or the Browns, or they were the main teams at the time. And we just we lost our first game in Philadelphia to the Browns. They beat us badly. It was like 40-something to 12. And after the game, Van Brockman got up and stood in front of us, and he said, "It's the worst game I've ever played in my life." He said, "I'll never do, this never happen again." And then we won every game after that first game. We lost one more game to Pittsburgh, and up in Pittsburgh, the Steelers, playing in a snowstorm, and they had Bobby Lane, but it was just, the Eagles and the Steelers are always that way. The Eagles always win in Philadelphia, and the Steelers always win in Pittsburgh. And home team advantage is always a factor, no matter where you are, especially in football, especially with your crowd behind you. It really does make a difference.
Talk to me about Van Brockman.
See, Van Brockman's like, I'll tell you who looks a little bit like him, the boy from Denver there.
Elway.
I mean, he seems to be his own man, you know what I mean? Whereas now today, all the offense is strictly, it's called from upstairs, most of it, you know what I mean, for the most part. But we always came back to the huddle, and the guys were always telling what we could do, what we could do here. Or, say if you had a Bruce Smith who was always rushing on the outside, would trap him, would draw him, would do whatever we wanted to. But everything is geared strictly off the upstairs now. And Van Brockman, he was a very, very smart individual, and he knew all the secondaries, and he could just tear them apart, you know. And that's how Jurgensen became such a good quarterback, just playing under him and watching him and being in meetings and everything like that. But he was definitely the boss, which the great quarterbacks are, you know. He threw more than one of us out of the game.
Is that right?
Yeah, if you weren't doing your job, get the hell out.
Really?
You know, we had a kid in, we were playing the Giants up in Yankee Stadium, and a kid playing alongside of me, his name was Jerry Huth. And he stuttered. And he'd come back in the huddle, and like this kid had a big forehead anyhow, and his forehead would always get scraped up because your helmet gets hard. We wore those leather Riddells. And he comes back and he's Jesus, Jimmy's in trouble with Rosie. And he was blocking Rosie, and I'm blocking Robistelli. And Christ, I got all I can handle with Robistelli. And what he wanted me to do was hit him and just occasionally take a pop shot at him. And I'll be damned if they had what was called the giant blitz, and all that meant was line would go one way, the linebackers would go another, and they would rush all the different holes, all the different openings, not necessarily the people. And it was a hard thing to block, you know. But the big thing you had to know was when the play was called, like it was set, hut 1, hut 2, 34, and then you go just like that. You had to go know whether you're going right or left. If you went the wrong way, your man came in. And Jerry screwed up 2 times against his Rosie career. And Rosie came in and smashed Van Brocken both times, and that's when Van Brocken said, "Get the hell out of here." But the best one was the first one. And when he came in the first time, Van Brocken got caught, and Rosie just rode him right into which is the mound, the pitching mound.
Yep.
And it's all this like it's a different sand. It's a rough sand, like, you know. The mound is gone, but the sand is still there. So he just ground him in there, and all Van Brocken had on was a bar. So we're walking back the huddle, and everybody feels bad. He got caught, you know, 12 yards back. And Van Brocken got up, and he got in the huddle, and he said, "You goddamn guys couldn't block my mother." Everybody just standing there, nobody saying nothing. But he said, "My mother was a hell of a footballer." And he said, "Just get going, you know." And so we ended up winning the game. In fact, that was a game that, I think that was a game that Frank Gifford went out on, you know. But you have so many good stories of ball players and things that happen, you know, it's just so funny. We had a boy who had a real high voice, played guard on the other side of the line, on the other side of the center. And he, I won't tell you what his name was. We'd go into, we'd be checking into hotels wherever they were, different cities, you know, and everybody had an Eagles blazer on like that. And here you see 35, 40 big guys standing around the desk, and everybody's saying, "What room we got? You know, it's your roommate or something." And you hear this one guy, and he'd be on.
Vinny, you got the key.
These people that be standing around, where's this voice coming from? You know, they couldn't hear this voice. Yeah. But it was a great experience.
Chuck Bednarik.
World War II created a new breed of NFL player. This is the face of pro football in the 1950s. It is the face of Chuck Bednarik.
You know somebody's out there to get you. And boy, you're going to defend yourself. And now you just turned killer. And of course, as the game progresses and in the heat of the battle, you're getting hit. And then suddenly all you think of is, it's that kill.
This is the way you go after him. You're frothing from the mouth. You say, "Get him. Get him." A first-generation son of Slovakian immigrants, Concrete Charlie had hands hardened by war. Hands first forged in the shadow of his father's steel mill. Hands once held by a mother who had known only hard times.
Looky here, there, you're on television.
No,
Co oni tu robia, hejže?
No, please. Well, he was tough. And lots of kids wanted to fight him. And they told me, and I told him like that, don't hit him first. But if he hit you, anybody hit you first, give it to him. Give him a good one.
I remember on the fourth down punting situation, I snapped the ball to the punter, and as soon as I brought my head up, pow! Jeez, my helmet flew off, and I saw these little black dots in the yellow thing, and I also saw the number, Woo. And I went up to him. I said, you son of a bitch, I'll get you.
Number 65 was Chuck Knoll. The feud grew over time.
4 years later, there's Chuck Knoll. Lo and behold, the game's over. Here he comes. Here he comes. He said, are you ready, you? And I went, whoom. I mean, I gave him a shot, and he went down. Bert Bell fined me $500, and he said, I want you to apologize to that boy. Now, it takes a little courage to go up to somebody when something like that happened, to say you're sorry. So I remember it took, I was waiting, and then finally I went over and I said, I want to apologize for what happened in Philadelphia. And he came up close to me and he said, bullshit.
Tremendous football player. He was Mr. Philadelphia. When they said, when Tommy just mentioned that Van was Bednarik was really had more fans than Van Brocklin. Van Brocklin, when he ran out on the field, you know, he gave him the finger. That's the first thing he did. When he ran on the field, he played at Franklin Field, you know, at the University of Penn there, and he would be introduced last. And when he come running out, they would automatically, they would boo him. And this is through every game, you know, one game after another. But it was just a thing he had with the fans, and he'd run out and they'd be booing him, and he'd go, yeah, like this. Keep on running, you know. But it was funny. I had a funny experience. And we played up in Cleveland, or we played up in New York. I'll stick to the Giants and tell you this one. We played with the Giants, and we beat them 13-10 up there, which they just completely blew them away. They couldn't believe they could get beat up in Yankee Stadium. And then the following week, they came down and played us. And so they come down, and we figure we're going to win the game. You know, we're all hepped up and all that. The game's 5 minutes old, and they're ahead 17-0. This Y.A. Tittle throwing a couple of touchdowns and all that. And so we're madder than hell. And we're up. And we're mad at the defense because they let them score, you know, and it's 17-0. How the hell are we ever going to get this score going? So we're out on the field, and I'm the captain of the wedge on the kickoff. And I'm just saying everything. I don't want to repeat what I'm saying, but anyhow, I'm just telling them everything. And I said, I don't care. I know I'm after this guy who played my position. His name was Rosie Brown, a tremendous ball player. Played for the Giants for years. But I was so damn mad, I was going after him. His number was 72. And I said, wedge right. And they said, how come you're calling it right? I said, we're going right. I don't care where the hell the ball is. We're going right. Because I had him already picked off, you know. So this is how stupid your mentality is. It's just like being in the Marines. You have a mindset that you can't get hurt. You know, you can do anything. And so they lined up. The ball came down. We went to the right. I started running towards this Brown. Well, naturally, you normally would go to the guy and then go down, gradually go down and hit him, you know. But right at the last second, he realized what I was doing. I was just going to run right through him. I'm going straight on, and I'm just going to run right through him. And that's just exactly what I did. And when I got to him, his eyes got like this, and I hit him underneath, knocked him right out. I was right in front of my bench, right? Van Brocklin comes out and jumps on me, and he says, greatest goddamn block I ever saw in my life. Jesus, he's going on, you know, he's laying on me on the ground. The only thing that saved me was I knocked Brown out. See, so they're coming over there and they're fixing, they're taking care of it. Now I'm trying to get up. I'm so goddamn goofy. I don't even know where the hell I am. You know what I mean? And I get up, and they're still there, boy, what a block, and all this stuff, and I'm going back to the huddle, and I can't get my breath, I can't do anything, you know, I'm in the huddle, and I'm saying, Jesus, God, I hope we get another 3, 4, 5 minutes. But that goes to show you that you gotta have that mindset when you play the game. If you're gonna do a good job and excel, you know. But that's just a good little story to tell you. The thing I don't like about today is maybe you've read some of the articles. There's an article with Tom Landry and Roger Staubach, how Roger Staubach would always go against Landry. Landry actually started all this as far as everything being called from upstairs, you know. And you can't knock Landry's success. But many times Staubach would he'd call him to play, and Staubach would say, the hell, you don't need to just run his own plays. As long as he got a touchdown, I guess it was okay, you know. But
Jim, how did you get started? Let's talk about Jim McCusker. Were you born? Why don't you give us a little bit of biography?
Well, I grew up in the north side, grew up on Kingsbury Street. Originally grew up on 15th Street, was what they called the Swamp Rats, you know. And then moved up on Kingsbury, went to Washington. Coaches there were Harold Rubens, Tex Dane. In fact, I always give, you know Rubens, you must know Rubens well. I always gave Rube he's the one that actually kept my career going as far as football. When I got down to the high school, back then you started practice probably a week before school started. And so I went down and I was practicing as a varsity, and then school started, and I was working at Loblaws, the 3rd and Bernard guys that were here down there. School started, and I was getting into classes and that, and I said, I got too much going on. I don't think I'll go play football. So I quit the football, and went along about a week, and I said, I missed the football. So I go back, and Walt Colburn was the coach, and I'm in the office with Walt, and Walt's telling me, you can't come back, and I pleaded with the coach, just won't you let me come back now? Do it. Luckily, Harold Rubens walks in the door, and he says, what's going on? And Colburn's telling him, you know, he says, we won't take him. He says, I'll take him, because we had a sophomore team and a varsity team, you know. And so he put me, I got on the sophomore team. So they let me stay on the sophomore team, so kept my career going, you know. So I took off from there. Then I went on to Pitt. Went on to the University of Pittsburgh, which at the time was quite a powerhouse, you know. They travel all around.
Who's your coach there?
Mike Olson.
Mike Olson?
Yeah, Mike Olson. And we played everybody. You know, we were like Notre Dame. We were just the big independent. One of the great things about it was I got to see the whole country by the time I was 21 years old. Yeah. You know, we would play a couple games on the West Coast, play down in Texas, play down in the Deep South, played Miami. We always ended up playing our last game was Miami. But you really got to see the country by the time you were coming out of college. But
why Pitt?
I was in engineering. Yeah. I started off in engineering. It was either going to be Pitt, Syracuse, or Brown. Those are the 3 schools I picked. But I went to a lot of schools, nothing like that, but that's what I narrowed it down to. And why I picked Pitt, I don't know, other than the fact that I definitely wanted a good school.
Did you get
as far as you know, distance from home, that would be. But I was lucky while I was there. We went to 2 bowls. We went to Sugar Bowl. We went to the Gator Bowl. In fact, the Sugar Bowl, which was 1955, was the first time they let blacks in Tulane Stadium. They let them in. They were, if you can believe it, just to think this, it's the first time, and they let them in the end zone. They were allowed in the one end zone. And we had a black boy on the team. His name was Bobby Greer. He was a fullback. And the game ended up 7-6. They called a penalty on him, which put the ball on the 1-yard line. That's the only way they ever scored. It was really a bad taste in our mouth.
Yeah.
The only thing about Pitt was we couldn't we couldn't score, but nobody could score on us. You know, that was we always had a great defensive team, but we didn't know what it was to get to the end zone and score points.
Did you play defense as well, Jim? Or just both?
We played 60 minutes.
Defensive tackle?
Which, yeah, defense and offense, which that's one part I wouldn't like today, you know, because today you're an offensive player, or else you're a defensive player. And I just think to play the whole game and know everything about it is you're just that much better a player.
Yeah.
Myself. Yeah. And we played all over the place, Oklahoma, you know. But it was great, and then by the time my junior year, I knew that I was going to be a pretty high draft choice in the NFL. As it turned out, I was drafted by the Cardinals. I was the second draft of the Cardinals, which was the 13th pick in the country at that time, which would be worth probably about $8 million today, I guess, something like that. I signed for $8,500 plus $4,000 bonus. That was when I signed. When I retired, I was making $22,000 a year, and that was tops for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
The highest paid guy in the league was either John Brody or else Jim Brown. Jim Brown was making 45, I think. Van Brockman was making 35, I think.
Was there any negotiations at the time? I mean, did they just send you the contract?
No, you just went and talked to the general manager, and that was it, you know.
Didn't have an agent or?
No, there's no reason to. Actually, you know, with the money being as big as it is, naturally you've got to, if you can prorate it any way you can, great. But I mean, you have a league contract, and the only thing you can do is add to the league contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the contract itself is there. All they do is fill in the numbers. But,
just as an aside, you saw Jim Ringo on the tape here,
yeah.
and I did not include that piece. But Jim was part of the, I don't know if you ever heard the story, but Jim in Finley Lake, and he was with the Green Bay Packers and played for Vince Lombardi, and he just was honored his second or third All-Pro in a row. And he thought he was worth X amount of dollars and was on a fishing trip with Jerry Kramer. He was the offensive guard. And he was talking with Jerry, and it just came up, you know, Jerry, what are you making? You know, it's the first time we were going to talk about it. And he told him, and Jerry is younger than Ringo. Ringo says, wait a minute, I'm 33 years old, I'm several-time All-Pro, we had a championship year, I should at least be making what this guy makes. So he goes in and talks to Lombardi. Lombardi says, no, you're going to get X. And Jim didn't like that very well. And Jim hired a lawyer. And Jim left a message with the secretary, Vince Lombardi's secretary, that his lawyer would be in contact with. The first agent, if you will. And so Jim's lawyer then called Vince's office. Vince Lombardi asked for an appointment. And Vince's secretary got back and said, well, it will not be necessary. You may advise your client he's just been traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for Earl Grove. And so Jim tells that story with great relish, saying that was my first chance of using an agent in the NFL history. And that's how it ended. I got traded. Ultimately, my career, you know, ended in Philadelphia. But that's the...
You got a free ride at that, though. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a scholarship. And they, you know, even back when I came up, you guys, in a lot of cases, if you got hurt in college, that was the end of your scholarship, you know. That was a key factor, too. I mean, you had to be in you had to make sure where you're going as far as college, you know what I mean? And I'm talking back in the 50s, but more than one person I know of at other different colleges, they got hurt, and that was it.
Yeah.
Done. Just did not have a contract.
Now, you signed with Chicago.
Signed with Chicago, played a year, went back to camp. I was in camp the following year, and the coach's name was Pop Ivy. And he came down from Canada. He was originally under Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma, and he came down from Canada, and he was trying to put in this they called it a double wing offense. Well, it's not an offense you can use in the pros because it's just too slow in development, and the guys are too fast, and they just eat it up in the backfield. But anyhow, he had a policy. This is how I got traded to the Eagles. He had a policy that if you started a position, you ran under everything. And I mean, back then you only had 33 ball players and then 35 ball players. So you ran under your own punts, kickoffs, everything like that. Today they've got just guys that do that. But so we had 6 exhibition games, 14 league games. That's what we played. And they, this is what his policy was. Not we were up in Seattle. We were playing the 49ers, and we were lining up for the teams. And he called out the punting team, and they had told me they wanted to start this kid. He was their #1 draft choice out of Iowa. He was just a massive guy. He's about 6'10", 6'11", just huge. He looked like Humphrey in the comics. That's what this guy looked like. And they drafted him as their center, as our center. Well, he was just getting eat up. And so they thought they're going to try him at tackle. And so the coach came to me and he says, we're going to start him at left tackle. I said, okay. I said, I don't think you should. I think you should start him at right tackle because you've got the pass rusher at left tackle. You know what I mean? He said, well, we're going to try him. I said, okay. And that was that. But then they lined up for the punting team, and they called left tackle position. They said, McCusker. I wouldn't go in. They said, McCusker, get in here. I said, hey, it's your rule. You said if he's good enough to start, he can run under his own goddamn punts. I said, I got to run under punts for him and have my leg. And I walked. We were in the University of Washington's field house. So I walked off the field, and the coaches all came to me and, no, you got to go apologize. You got to do this. And I said, no way. I said, that's his rules. So that's when I was traded to the Eagles. Best thing could ever happen.
That's right.
Speaking of the Cardinals, my first year, listen to this. We won our first 2 games, and in fact, that was the last year of 12 games. We won our first 2 games, and the second game we won was against the Redskins. We were in Chicago in the park at Comiskey. And it was a night game, and I thought, boy, this is great. You know, NFL, we won 2 games. We lost the next 10 games. Every damn game we lost. And by the time I came back that following year, you just wondered if you should keep playing or to just get out of it and get started in business or do something. But it was many great memories.
Philadelphia, your coach there was Buck Shaw?
Buck Shaw, yeah, who was a great coach. One thing I want to really portray to you is that don't ever believe that you've got to have good players, but you've got to have that head coach. I really had a great career, and then I had worked in sales. I originally worked in steel sales, especially. I sold specialty steel for a big steel warehouse distributor. Then I eventually went into a commercial bakery, which was, that's how I got into the pub. I worked for a commercial bakery which had about 175 trucks on the street. They're all big down through, from New York down into D.C. And I called on everything from racetracks to colleges to school systems to restaurants, everything like that. And I saw this operation that I liked, and I just kept watching and watching it. When I decided to retire, I thought, I think I'm going to go back home and build this place. And what I liked about it was that it appealed to all different ages, not just one particular age, a young age, or something like that. And so here I am, 33 years later. I've enjoyed it.
Talk to us a little bit about the guys who are really tough, the characters that you were there during some unique time periods, the Big Daddy Lipscombs of the world, the Bobby Lanes, and all of that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing about rosters. Maybe Kenny could very well. A roster is just a pack of lies. When you look at it and look at a guy and he says he's 6'2", like they had me listed as 6'2", 245. But at the time I was 6'3", 265. They had Rosie Greer listed at 295. Well, he's more like 400 pounds. You know what I mean? Big Daddy Lipscomb, he had to be 400 pounds if he weighed 10 pounds. You know what I mean? But Big Daddy was fast though. He was huge but fast. I played a game down. In fact, it was my first NFL game. We played College All-Stars, and then we came down to Austin, Texas, and we were playing Baltimore Colts. I'll tell you how fast Big Daddy was. They had him playing middle linebacker in what's it called, a 4-3 defense, which they had back then. Place Sam Huff played. We threw a long pass. They intercepted the pass, and we're running all over hell, and we're trying to tackle this guy, and the guy's running all over the place. And I'm going cross field, and I'm running, all of a sudden, boom, I go up in the air. Somebody clotheslines me. I go up in the air, and I do a flip in the air, and I come down on my head. And the guy walks over, and he looks down, and he says, "Oh, but it hurt you, Jim." It was this Big Daddy Lipscomb. It shows in the movie. I'm running by, going like hell, and he just sticks out his hand like this, and I just go, "Well, he's good." But he played the game. It was like it was his game. I mean, it was all played under his rules. You know what I mean? He was so big and so massive. Rosie Greer was like that too. But there was what Ringo said is so true. There were so many individual characters back there that, you know, but they didn't do the stupid things that I don't like today. I don't like all the show-off stuff today, you know what I mean? Somebody makes a big tackle and jumps up and does a rah-rah or something like that. And that idea of running up in the stands, to me, that's a joke. I just don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. What was your biggest thrill?
Oh, without the championship by far. Yeah.
NFL championship, the Packers waged a seesaw battle with the Eagles. Late in the fourth quarter, trailing 17-13, Green Bay learned a brutal big league lesson.
And we're down by 4, and so we have to score a touchdown. And we move about 80 yards. I mean, we're chewing up the field. Taylor is just wonderful.
Bart Starr has just one more chance. He throws a short pass to Jim Taylor. Taylor brings the crowd to its feet as he nearly gets loose, but Chuck Bednarik grabs him on the 10, and that's the end of the line.
Bednarik lays on Taylor and delays the clock to the point that we can't get another playoff.
In that locker room, after the game, I could still remember Lombardi saying, "Boys, you did a great job. You had a great season." And he said, "This will never happen to us again."
Protecting a 17-13 lead, Chuck Bednarik's tackle on the game's final play became one of the greatest moments in the history of Philadelphia sports.
67,000 people standing. What an electrifying finish to a great season and a great game. Starr's up over the ball. This'll be it. Starr's back to throw. He takes time. He throws over the middle. It's caught at the 15. Running hard to the 7-yard line and down on the 7.
I could see the clock going 11, 10, and he's squirming and kind of, we're stalling for time. It was 2 and 1, and I looked down at him and told him, "You can get up now, you blankety blank. This game is over."
The game's over. The game's over. The Eagles are the champions of the world. Listen.
How much money they make, they all want that ring.
Yep.
There's no two ways about it. You know, no matter how much, whether they want to be all pro or whatever they want to be, every one of them still wants that ring. It was so funny. I was laughing. I remember back when we won the championship, and they were saying, you could get a ring, you could get a pendant, you could get a watch, you get all these different things, and some guys were getting their wives these pendants, and I'm saying, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as you love your wife, I know, but it's still, you know. And they probably got divorced, and she took that with her.
That's right.
But that's funny. That's cool.
It was one of the things we should have forewarned you, Jim. The worst thing to do is when you're the speaker is actually order your lunch with the rest of us.
After, right? Yeah, no problem. Too bad they don't have that game anymore, the College All-Star game. You know, was put on by the Chicago Tribune, and it was a great game, and I don't know why it ever stopped. We were one of the last teams to beat the pros, and we won 35-14, and we played the Detroit Lions under Bobby Lane, and our coach was Otto Graham. It was the first year that Otto Graham had coached the All-Stars, and he's just a tremendous individual. And as great a quarterback as he was that I watched him when I was a kid, he was just that great a person, you know. And we had great assistant coaches. I had John Sandusky, who was the line coach. And, in fact, when I went into the pros, I went in as a defensive end. That's what I was going to be for the Cardinals. And when I was down in camp with the college All-Stars, they called down one day and said, put McCusker at left tackle. And I immediately went from defense to offense. And I was really upset because I had never done any pass blocking to speak of, you know. At Pitt, we only had what's called play pass action. All you do is shoot out at the guy, knock him down. But I never done any of this drop back passing. And John Sandusky was the coach. Of course, he's been an all-pro offensive lineman for the Browns for years and years. He said, I'll work with you. So he spent 2.5 weeks with me that I was there with him, you know, taught me all kinds of things, which really was added to my success, you know. But so then I became a tackle, an offensive tackle. But believe you have just as much fun or just as much satisfaction making a great block as you do a great tackle. Yeah. You see, all of a sudden, you see that halfback running down across that goal line, or else you're blocking a defensive end, and all of a sudden, they're walking down the field, and they're swearing at each other. Jesus Christ, who the hell missed that guy? What the hell? And you're walking down the field and just laughing at them, you know, as you walk down the field.
Sam Huff, what's that mean to you?
He was a great player. He, of course, I knew him in college, too. He was at West Virginia when I was a kid. He was a tremendous player. He had a real high voice, you know. Did you know that? Yeah.
Wasn't he Jim Brown's nemesis? He played the Giants.
Well, yeah,
Jim Brown never did anything against him, but it's his sole responsibility.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. But that's where they set up their defense, you know. That's exactly what they did. But I'll tell you one thing, I'd hate to play Jim Brown every week. Believe me, he was without a doubt the best athlete I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mitchell, who do you think you are? We're getting ready to play a football game and you're coming down late to get this bus. You're hurting our football, just so you know. And Jim Brown is standing there like this. Now, Jim knows he is talking to him. All the things he wants to say to Jim, he is saying through me. It was tough for Paul Brown to attack Jim Brown in front of other players because Jim was so bigger than the rest of us because of his talent and his intelligence and his ability to control situations. He wasn't a person that you could just, you should have ran that play this way, or you couldn't do that to Jim Brown. And Paul Brown had one person that was different from he'd ever had, and it was tough for him.
Individual self-expression versus organizational discipline. As the NFL was coming of age in the late 50s and early 60s, this conflict was symbolized by the struggle between Jim Brown, the era's greatest player, and Paul Brown, the era's greatest coach.
Paul, in a sense, entrapped himself. He may not have stayed abreast with the mindset of the athlete in those days, and he expected the things to remain much as they had been, in which there was much discipline, much as the military in World War II had, in which he could count on the players just responding to his every request, and that they would be there when he needed them.
It was said that Paul Brown answered to himself and to God, so long as God didn't try to call any plays.
Paul Brown called all plays. He sent them in because he felt that he would know in a situation better than the quarterback. We disagreed on that totally as a team.
The players were united against him to have him open up the offense and do things that were more innovative. Players always talk among themselves and always think they know more than the coach, and we were no different. But then what happened was that Art Modell came in, bought the team, and that was the end of it because Art eventually got rid of Paul.
In 1963, Art Modell replaced Paul Brown with Blanton Collier. Collier said, "I think the boys like to feel they have a part in running the thing." That year, Jim Brown set a new all-time single-season rushing record.
I did have a resolve to show the general public that Jim Brown was not a player that needed Paul Brown necessarily. And I had the freedom of Blanton Collier, so I was able to express myself fully.
You gang tackled him, you did everything, give him extracurriculars. He'd get up slow, look at you, and walk back to that huddle and wouldn't say a word. Just come at you again and again. You just say, what the hell? What's wrong with this guy? For heaven's sake, when is he gonna stop carrying the ball? How much more can he take?
Greatest run that I ever saw, Jim Brown went left and he came back right and he came back left, and our guys kept hitting him and they kept falling off. He bounced back and he scored. And I'm on the sideline and I just have never seen anything like this, and I'm saying, my God. And then I realized that I was on the wrong side of this deal.
Until you lined up next to this guy and watched him time after time make it come out all right for the Cleveland Browns, you can't fully respect how good he was. If we had the capabilities today to show him from 15 different angles, people would say that was not a human.
He was 6'2", 245, and he could run like a deer. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And I sat and watched many movies naturally out there, you know, of different things he does. I saw him run an end around against the Redskins one day, and I swear at least 15, 18 guys hit him, and all he did was keep spinning, you know. He just had that power in those legs, and then eventually just broke free and went 50 yards at a time. Just unbelievable plays I saw. But he wasn't the best person as far as off the field. You know, he was really a pain. It was all the black-white thing, and he just couldn't get it. And no matter what you talked about, or no matter what went on, it was always black-white. He was the first kid. And he didn't come from that. You know, if he came out of the South, I could probably understand it a lot more. But he came from grew up in Long Island, went to Syracuse. He was always treated royally. But we would have, with the Browns, we always had a team party at Cleveland Sheridan after the game. And everybody would go there, and there'd always be some celebrities in town. They would always be invited. It didn't cost you anything. I think it cost like $30, $35 for the evening. It was just the Sheraton wanted everybody there. And we were up on the second floor on the mezzanine. And people would come up and get autographs and all that. And that's the way it was set up for. Sure. He would never come. And we had 9 black boys on the team. Everyone else would show up except him. We just wouldn't come to him. Never signed an autograph. Come down in the lobby. Whenever you walked in the lobby, you're gonna have to sign an autograph. Never signed him, just walked right by. So, but he was that type of person. But what can you say? I mean, he was a tremendous athlete. And he acts like a jerk when you see him today. He's still wearing that, whatever. I think it would bother you. You still have that feeling, though. You still, it's your locker room, it's your field, you get all those feelings. I'll tell you a funny thing, though, and I purposely watch it on television. They still do it. You'd go out there and you'd warm up, and all the linemen are normally down in the end zones. And so you're down there, all the referees are walking around, they're checking your arms and see if they can find anything that they got the wrong type of pad on or what you have on, all this type of stuff. Now then you run into the field, you run into the locker room, and you have like 10 minutes to get back out on the field. And you go into the locker room, everybody's strapping on everything. They're putting on everything they can find, right? And what they used to have back when I played with, they had tape cans. I explained this to Russ and Greg before. They take a tape can and they'll cut out about a third of it and they'll snap it on their wrist and then they'll tape it on, see? And then they'll take their jersey down and they'll tape their jersey so that they can't see the damn tape can. Then they come out there and they start the game and they just give you a slap like that across the head. And it's just like a baseball bat hitting you in the head. And if you complain to the referee, they wouldn't do a damn thing. In fact, one of the greatest guys for where the tape cans was Ernie Stodler. I don't know if you ever remember Ernie Stodler. Yeah. But that's why they outlawed the head slap. You no longer use the head slap, and you can no longer leg whip. Well, our defense of the tape can was the leg whip. And I just tell them, go take those tape cans off, I'm going to kick it. And you know where I'm going to kick it. The TV there, Tommy McDowell, he used to use the goalpost to run his pattern. You know, he'd go down or lock his arm around it and swing around it, and then go shooting out into the flat in the end zone. And the back was trying to cover him. The back couldn't cover him. You know, he had it down pat. Yeah. That's how he scored so many touchdowns too. A certain play, I can't remember what it was, it doesn't really matter, but it was a crossing pattern, but it was a deep pattern. And Tommy would go down, Pete would go down, Pete Retzlaff was the other guy that was on it. He'd go down and go across, and then Tommy would come down behind him. Whenever they would call this play, they took what was called a 7 count. Now, 7 count's a very long count in pro football. They would take a 7 count. I hate to tell you how many touchdowns we scored on this play. I mean, I'm sure they hated to see it coming, and they'd always know it was coming. And the coaches used to go in and they'd say, "God damn you guys. Every time he calls that play, you give him a 7 count. Where the hell are you the rest of the game?" You know, because somebody's breaking down here or somebody's breaking down here. But it was always when they called this one darn play, and it took so long to complete it. It worked. Give you a story about Van Bronklin and how the quarterback on the field knows so much more. I mean, you can look down on that field and see things, but it's not the same as being down there. We were playing that second game that I was telling you about, back-to-back with the Giants, and we're playing in the University of Pennsylvania, Franklin Field. And so there you were, he had, like I said, 17-0, and we gradually come up and was 17-14, and it's the last maybe 4 minutes of the game. We're setting up Sam Huff is what we're doing. I mean, this is what Van Broncos doing. And so he ran a play purposely up around the 40-yard line. We snuck the fullback through the line, and we wanted to see what Huff would do. Huff didn't pick him up. So we come back and we ran a couple more plays, and we're still setting Huff up. That's all we're doing is setting him up. We get over to about their 40-yard line, call the same darn play, and what it is, it's a running play, pass play. It looks like a running play and all that. They run the play. Ted Dean goes through the line, looks like he has a ball, runs towards Huff. Huff turns and runs to cover somebody else. He runs down the field. He lobs a ball to him. We win 21-17. But that's Van Bronklin. See, that's the difference of that quarterback.
Yeah. Who was the toughest player you played against?
They all had good days. You know what I mean?
Is there a guy that you said, gee, I'm not excited about playing against him?
I played against a guy named Gene Brito. I don't know if you ever know that name from the Redskins. He was all-pro for years. And he wasn't very big either. He was like Andy Rubistelli, real fast and basically a linebacker. You know what I mean? But playing defensive end, very fast. And so first time I went up against him as a rookie, I was scared of, I was really worried about him. Because this guy's all-pro, and I'm really worried, So I have a great game against him. Now we come around to the second game. We play everybody twice back then. Come around to the second game, and he just ate me up. I mean, he just, threw my jack all over the place. After the game was over, I didn't even want to walk into the meeting and look at the movie. But you got to go in there and take your lumps. But that's what didn't happen. Funny, the first play I got in that pit, and I knew I was going to play. I was a sophomore, This part isn't funny, but this is exactly what happened. I'm in pit, and I know I'm going to play, but they weren't starting me. But I knew that I was something going to play a lot of the game. And so the doctor's walking around. His name was Doc Smith. He's walking around. He's giving these little orange things to guys. Do you want a pill? Do you want a pill? Do you want a pill? And these guys are taking pills, you know. Oh, I'll take a pill. So I took this stupid pill. It was a penny, is what it was. I take this penny. So I get out there. And I'm waiting to go in the game. I'm waiting. I'm not getting in the game. My face is numb. Jaw's numb. I mean, I'm exploding, you know. I'm saying, what the hell did I take? You know? So finally, Mike Wilson, he calls McCusker. So I get up and I run over, and we're playing in Southern Cal. We're playing at Pitt Stadium. And says McCusker. And so I run up there, and he tells me to go in, whatever he told me to do when I went in. And so they call an end around to my side. And what I was supposed to do is I'm supposed to hit this end and then go through and knock down, try to get the linebacker. I shoot off the line. They call a play. I shoot off the line. I knock the end right over. I go straight through and knock the linebacker down. My halfback comes around. His name was Corky Koss. He's running downfield, and I'm running down the field with him. I'm only about 2 yards behind him. He runs 65 yards for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, we're walking up, and there's Corky, and walk alongside him. He's saying, Jesus Christ. And so what's the matter, Corky? Somebody's offsides. Look at somebody's offsides. I get up there, and I wasn't one offsides. And he's bitching all the way back to the hell. He's saying, God damn it, I wonder who the hell did that, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, yeah, now I'm thinking, God, I hope it's not me. So then I get up there, and I figure, sure as hell, they're going to pull me off the field, you know, because I goofed up. As it turned out, when they show the movies, I'm moving with a ball. I'm the only one moving. I'm moving with a ball. The guy centers the ball, and I'm all right. I'm just, boom, I'm gone like that. I really wasn't offsides. And the coaches, they used this one play for, well, they still used it with Ditka when Ditka was there. They said, this is the way you fire out and hit the end and pick up the linebacker.
No kidding.
He used this play over and over. But I was higher than a kite, and I never, ever, ever took a pill in my life after that. Honest to God.
What was your most embarrassing moment?
That was about it. Could have been much worse. I'll tell you, Van Bronken gave me the nickname Ears. And maybe about the 2-yard line, down the goal line. I had the wrong count. I shut off on a 1, and it was like a 2 or a 3, you know. And then that's embarrassing. I mean, when you're on the 2-yard line, it goes back to the 5-yard line or something like that. It's okay if you score. No, I'd say that play at Pitt was about as bad as anything.
Max, now, was your team integrated? I mean, you obviously had a few with the Eagles here, but was
most teams when I was playing in the 60s had 4 or 5 players, maybe 3 players, 4 players. The Browns had 9 players. That was because of Brown. Brown had that much clout. But no, that was usually 4 or 5 players.
What was the relationship? Did they stick to themselves?
It was never a problem.
No problem?
No, it was, you know, it was always, with athletes, it's always good. I think what's happening is just the money's taken over and the drugs are taken over. You know, it almost seems to be like a combination.
Yeah.
Person has the money, and then they buy the drugs, and some of the things you see that goes on, it's horrible. I mean, it's ruining the image of the athlete as far as I'm concerned, you know, where the athlete was looked up to in so many cases. Well, I'll give you a good for instance. We get statistics all the time, players and that, you know, previous players and players today. When I was playing in the 60s, 85% of the guys had their degree. Today, less than 50 do.
No kidding.
Less than 50%. And that's bad.
What was the reaction of the city of Jamestown after you guys won the championship in 1960? Did you come back? Did they have, were you part of the sports dinner at the Temple?
Yeah, well, I always had the bookies calling me trying to figure out what to do. They wanted the inside in the game. And I can tell you how many times different people did that, you know. No, it was nice. It was very nice. It's just a thing that you go through that you, at the time, I don't think you appreciate it as much as you do afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard that from many athletes. Well, you heard it from the golfer the other day. They won the Masters.
Yeah.
He said the second time around, he said, "I'll really appreciate it." He didn't know what's going on first time.
Any other questions for Jim? If not, I want to thank you tremendously for doing it. It was just terrific. They'll also warm up your food, Jim.
No, that's okay.
Get a doggy bag.